Greetings, everyone. Happy night before night. It's Thursday. Happy night before Friday. Hope you're having a good day, good evening, as the case may be. It's probably evening if you're watching live. So let me know that you can see me and let me know that you can hear me. That'd be great. Jupiter is in here. Thank you, Alan. Playing with this toy. So you guys probably know this, but Monty is the new bookhouse cat. He stays in the bookhouse all the time. We're going to get him fixed next week, and we're hoping after he recovers from that he can not only be out here in the Lovecraft Easing office, but also in the house. But the other male cats don't seem to like him right now, so he's out here. Anyway, so I walked outside a few minutes ago, stepped out of my office here, and Jupiter was on the top step, which has been happening more and more. Like, he's around all the time, but it was like he was feeling lonely or wanted to come in or whatever. So Monty has not exactly been a gracious host. He keeps tackling him. So I put Monty in our bedroom, and I put with Danielle, and I kept Jupiter in here, and he's running around like a crazy cat, having a good time. I just gave him some canned food. So there, if you were wondering, gosh, I wonder what Mike's cats are doing tonight. I wonder what's going on in the bookhouse. Now you know. Hey, everybody. Brian, Alan, Darren. Darren, you may have think I forgot, but I haven't. It's in my email so that it doesn't get forgotten. So sometime within the next couple of weeks or so, we're going to get to your topic on a Patreon podcast. Okay? So yeah, don't think I've forgotten. So let's see. I'm one of us. If you told me your first name, I'm sure you're somebody I know. I keep forgetting what it is because I just look at the YouTube handles. Hey Chaz, hey Brian, Kim. So Frank, right? Thank you. You'll probably have to tell me again next week. Not, I'm kidding. I'll try to remember this time. So anyway, hey guys, thanks for staying up late with me. It occurred to me that, well, first of all, it occurred to me that I need to turn off my AC because it's making that loud noise again. All right. The other thing that occurred to me was I just realized that exactly 1 week from tonight is Halloween. So I'll be doing a Thursday night episode on Halloween night. I think that could be pretty fun. Uh, I think I can come up with a few things that we're not going to cover on Sunday. So, as you guys probably know, on Sunday, the regular podcast time, we're going to have Jeff and Scott Thomas on, as we usually do on the Halloween episode. Some of the other panelists will be there, and some of the patrons will be there. The $10 and up patrons who want to be there, just a little perk for giving extra. Try to throw in a few things. I hope I throw in enough. And so we're going to be talking about on Sunday. We'll be talking about strange but true things that have happened to us. And the Thomas brothers are kind of like, I'm not have to repeat this stuff because I've told it. But yeah, there's new people, so they may not have heard it before. Chaz, I think this is your second Halloween episode, right? Since you've been a easing victim. I think it is. But Chaz is going to be there. I think Donna is going to be there. And a few of the other $10 and up patrons are going to be there. So you get stinking drunk. That's a good excuse in my book, Chaz. So, but of course, a lot of people watch them later. But I think it'll be neat to do this next Thursday on Halloween. So I'll come up with some stuff to if you're in that evening and you're watching to keep you in that Halloween mood. So so all right. I like I like Mike Flanagan. I think he's a gifted filmmaker, and I'm glad he's obviously a huge Stephen King fan. I mean, what is this, his third adaptation? But he's gonna adapt Carrie into an 8 episode miniseries. Um, come on, man. How many times has Carrie been adapted? I mean, there's such a wealth of material out there to adapt, and we're just talking about Stephen King, much less all of the other writers out there who have published stuff over the decades. But okay, you wanna make money. I understand that. Stephen King's a draw. Stick to Stephen King stories, but there are so many great Stephen King stories out there that would fit so well in a miniseries. And a couple of examples. Duma Key. Eh, have you guys read Duma Key? That would be a great one. That one would be a terrible movie and a great miniseries done by Mike Flanagan. Um, what about In, the novella In? Have you guys read that one? I'm sure most of you have read both. Duma Keys is a Duma Key is a favorite of mine. Um, In is a favorite of mine, but there's so many other novels out there that could be done. I mean, what about a Dark Tower miniseries? What about each year is a book on the Dark Tower? You saw what happened when they tried to condense it into a movie. That did not work out. Let's put it that way. Um, I just don't understand the yeah, Dark Tower is made for it, Kim. You're right. I just don't understand the desire or the need to remake Carrie again when there are so many great stories out there that they could adapt. And all right, maybe this is blasphemous, but Carrie isn't that really that great of a story in my book. Certainly not compared to many of his other stories and novels. I mean, okay, kid gets picked on and has a gift, sets things on fire. Okay, there you know the plot. I mean, hell. Oh, good, another Exorcist movie. Yeah, yeah, we haven't had enough of those either. Jesus Christ on a popsicle stick. Yeah, there's definitely a heartbreaker near the end of Doom McKee, Chaz, you're right. And when I read it for the first time, I thought, oh my, did this have to happen? But, I get it. And that's all I can say without spoiling it. But if you haven't read Doom McKee, it's it's a story that takes place. Much of the novel is in the mind. Would you agree, Chaz and Darren? Much of the novel takes place in the mind of the protagonist. And done right, I love that. I really do. And if you're an audio book person, the audio reading, the narration is great. It's a very relaxing and enjoyable listen. Um, maybe C, maybe no, as Wireman said. Yeah, it's great. So I just don't understand the need to do Carrie again. And it's funny, every time I see an article on social media linking to, yay, Mike Flanagan's doing another Stephen King adaptation, half the comments are, geez, Carrie again? I mean, all these people paid all this much, who make all this much money, and you don't have any idea what the public feels on this topic. I mean, Jesus, I guess I said all I can say on that. Looks like you guys agree with me. Kim, you haven't read Doom McKee yet? I'm silently judging you, Kim. No, I'm kidding. It's good. It's hard to get to everything in our TBRs, isn't it? Um, I will I will go one with you too, Kim. And I have not read the Dark Tower books. And every time I try, I just get bored. My friends tell me, read the Wikipedia article on book one so you know what happens and then go to book two. Okay, maybe I need to do that, but I keep getting sidetracked by other books. Um, so I just had to admit something since you did, Kim. What did you think of The Gunslinger, Brian? Did it stop you from reading any others? No, you're judging me. I know you're judging me. I know you're not judging me. All right, if you missed it, all right, I'll quit bitching about Carrie. If you missed it, I do this on Patreon, I do this on this YouTube channel in the community part of it, and I do this on Facebook. Those are kind of my three social medias: Patreon, YouTube, and Facebook. I deleted my accounts on Instagram and Twitter months and months ago. Um, mainly one of the reasons why Twitter is because I just don't want to support anything that Elon Musk is doing. So, politics aside, I just don't like that guy. But anyway, what I was going to say is I post these quotes and recommendations on my three social medias. And if you missed it, I posted it's October. I posted about a book called The Halloween Boy and Other October Horrors by William P. Simmons. And that's a good one if you're in that Halloween mood and it's time, right? Here is a another one. Twitter is toxic these days, Kim says. The only reason I stay on there is because if the world is ending, it'll get tweeted about first. Probably. Oh, I forgot. I am on TikTok, but that's just for I just post the shorts there, like I do on YouTube. The funny thing is, I get a lot of views on TikTok. I wonder how much that translates into getting them over to the YouTube channel and the podcast, but who knows? I suppose if that many people are watching the shorts, something good is coming of it. All right, so here's another one: Whispered Echoes by Paul F. Olson, Olson. And that's that's a nice quiet horror. It it's set in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I think it's Chet Williamson who does a introduction to this collection. It came out a few years ago, and I had the author on the podcast. Nice older gentleman, and but Chet was talking about how these are all firmly placed in Upper Peninsula, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and it's as much a character as any of the other people in the collection. So, Darren, I don't know. That rings a bell, but I can't remember. So anyway, I posted about those two books. So if you're in the mood for a Halloween collection read, then maybe check those out. Um, I'd like to know what kind of movies you guys watch in October or near Halloween or on Halloween night. Halloween Land, isn't that the John Carpenter one? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. John Carpenter put out some Halloween books. Oh, you just watched The Fog for the first time or the second, or have you seen it before? I love that old movie. First time, only because of me. I'm a bad influence. Yep, The Fog. I've got a poster. I'm looking at the poster, courtesy of Mike DeBronzo. I'm gonna have to do a new tour of the office for everybody because I put of the book house because I put up some more posters. I've got Escape from New York right up here, and well, I'll do a tour and you guys will know. So, yep. Um, Another movie. I don't know if I've mentioned this, at least not in recent years, but this is not a Halloween movie, but this is a film called The Man from Earth, and it's a really good low budget science fiction film. And when I say science fiction, what I mean is the concepts in it, because it's basically, and you could be forgiven if you thought my description of the movie sounds boring as hell, but the entire film, 98% of it takes place in this guy's house. He's moving, and his friends are kind of giving him they're stopping by to give him a little bit of a goodbye party. And oh, did Matt play that on an easy movie night? I'm corrupting Dr. Carpenter too. Oh, I'm glad you love it, Alan. Did I have any part in sending that your way, or just did you watch it years and years ago? It came out in 2007, I believe. But that sounds pretty boring, right? People sitting around watching or talking. No, but that's pretty much it. With this guy, he starts telling them that he's 14,000 years old. And the discussion that this starts and the things that they talk about, this is what science fiction is all about. You know, that sense of wonder and awe. Hi, Jupiter. You turned off the light. You turned off the lamp. I think Jupiter wants his 20 minutes of fame here. Hey, buddy. You are just the cutest little guy, you know that? Here, let me put the video up here. There he is. Jupiter's small but mighty. I mean, he stays out almost all the time. Every time I try to get him to stay inside, he wants to go back out. All right, guys. I'm sorry. Give me a second. He wants to go out. I'll let him out here. 1 second. You want to go outside, little buddy? Come on. You can go out. You're not a prisoner. There you go, buddy. I'll see you in a little bit. Take your time. We're just doing a podcast here. I worry about him, but not much I can do. He's adamant that he gets to stay outside. Here, the problem is I've got to get him. I don't know if you guys can hear me actually. Could you guys hear me? I've got to get him. I've got to get him used to being inside before winter gets here. Um, I thought of Vandal Savage too, Alan. What if Vandal Savage was a good? Yeah. Um, you know, I don't want to say too much about it. I'm not saying there's lots of twists and turns, but it's just I don't want to take anything away from the experience. Yes, it could easily be a stage play. Um, I just highly recommend it if you're listening to me and you've not seen The Man from Earth, please check it out. 'Cause I really think that anyone listening to the sound of my voice, live or later, that's that could be your thing, or at least part of what you enjoy. So anyway, what I was saying about Jupiter is he's a free spirit. You know, he'll come in, he'll say hi, and then he wants to go back out. But I got to get him to get used to being inside the bookhouse at the very least before winter gets here. I lost him for a week and a half, and it really tore me up. I There are many people who would make fun of that. You know, he's just a cat, all that crap. But nobody listening and watching me, I don't think would. I think you guys all understand that. And then thankfully he showed up again. I just don't want to lose him again. You know, 10 days gone, little guy like him. And he's just a little cat. I mean, he's got to be 8 months old at least. He's just not going to get much bigger. Monty, however, is huge for his age. And he's got big paws, which means he's going to get even bigger. Anyway, The Man from Earth. I don't know how many times I've rewatched that. But I read an article online about 6 months ago, another fan of the movie. And of course, it was social media. I forget where it was, but a lot of people chiming in. Yeah, I think it was Reddit. I'm sure it was Reddit. A lot of people chimed in and said, you know, how much they loved it too and everything. And then one person wrote, "Yeah, sometimes at night I'll put it on as I go to sleep, and I listen to it as I go to sleep." You know, if you're the kind of person who listens to audiobooks when you go to sleep, which this guy was, and I was like, wow, I've done that 4 or 5 times. And then the OP, the original poster, wrote back, replied, I do that too. So it was pretty cool. Um, Dave says, like you, I have a stray cat that I have adopted. When she was gone for 4 hours, I freaked out and could not imagine losing her. Yeah, you really, they get into your heart, don't they? And there are other stray cats in the neighborhood that have figured out that we are the softy family over here, and we're we put out food all the time. But you know, and I'll always care for them and feed them and give them water. But you know, Jupiter, I just fell in love with that little guy. Speaking of, and of course Monty too. I love him. Uh, he just needs to learn to be a little bit more accepting. You know, he was a lot too long ago. You were out on the street too, is what I tell him. But of course, I named him after the guy on Fahrenheit 451, Guy Montag. But we call him Monty. But sometimes when I come back in the book house, I'll be like, "Hey, little guy, get it?" Dad joke. Sorry. Monty is quite a bit bigger than Jupiter. And he kind of tackles him and holds him down. And Jupiter is so even tempered that he'll just kind of squeak. And I've been reading articles and everything on I keep doing the things that you're supposed to do to stop that. One of those things is I'll put him in his cat carrier in here, which is comfortable. It's got like a nice little bed in it and everything. And let Jupiter roam around free in here for a while. But he hasn't learned yet, but hopefully he'll get there. He's got to get there before winter. So I don't want Jupiter freezing to death. Let's see. So if you didn't know, if you're listening to me, you're a patron, 10 and up, and you didn't know about this Sunday, email me, lovecrafteasing@gmail.com, and or message me on Patreon. Let me know that you'd like to be there on Sunday, 6 p.m. Let's see. I posted, yeah, I like a lot of Darren says, do you like Dean Koontz? I'm reading The Bad Weather Friend by him. Um, yeah, I like a lot of his older stuff, Darren. Um, as a matter of fact, it's funny that you ask because I was just this week listening to the audiobook of The Bad Place. I remember when I first read that book when it came out, it must have been in 89 or 90. Um, I remember reading that way back when. His his newer stuff, I guess past the year 2000 or so, I'm not as big of a fan, although I did enjoy several of the Odd Thomas books. I thought those were pretty good. So, um, yeah, I think he has two kinds of fans, really. He has fans that like his older stuff, which was more horror, and he's got newer fans that like his stuff that seems to almost border on spiritual, and sometimes it can get kind of preachy. So I really liked Darren, since you opened this box up, I really I really liked um, Fear Nothing and Seize the Night, which were both about this guy who has XP, xeroderma pigmentosa, which is a very rare illness that does not allow your skin to fight off the effects of the damage of light. You'll go out, you get a sunburn or suntan or whatever, and your skin heals itself before too long, right? But not with this guy. It's all cumulative, so it adds up his entire life. So he's had to be really careful his entire life. So he's a night owl. So which is a nice way of getting the character out at night, instead of during the day. And typical Dean Koontz, it's a small town in California on the ocean, and strange things start happening. I'm not saying Koontz is terribly original. He kind of redoes his plots, but sometimes they're just fun reads. I mean, I wouldn't recommend to someone Hey, I don't know. If you're in that mood, it's good. I did not read Intensity, though, to answer your question, Darren. But if you've not read Fear Nothing and Seize the Night, I I like those a lot. I like the name of the character is Christopher Snow, and he's got a friend named Bobby, and they're just both very much free spirit type guys, and they're not one to be driving down the freeway on their in their metal coffins to work every day. Um, so yeah, check them out, Darren. Did you read those yet? And yeah, the Bad Place you might like. I mean, it's firmly set in 1990 or so. The two Christopher Snow books are firmly set around 1998, and late 90s, even mid 90s, bring on the horror fiction. I love it. I like that era a lot. John Connolly has a new book out, a new horror collection out called Night and Day. And I think I mentioned this last Thursday, but in case you missed it, if you haven't read Nocturnes, Chaz, I think you'd like this. Nocturnes is a really good collection, and I've read it at least 3 times. So, Phantoms and Watchers. I've read Phantoms, haven't read Watchers, and I've seen Phantoms too, and I didn't think it was all that bad, really. Uh, and I've not seen Watchers, so anyway, thanks for spending your Thursday late night with me, guys. Let's see, what else do I have here? Yeah, John Connolly. Okay, so start with Nocturnes if you've not read Nocturnes, and then his new book is Night and Day, another horror collection. And for those of you who don't know, I recently last Friday, interviewed Richard Chismar. He's got a new book called Memorials out, which is interesting. Um, I posted a short video today, and it was a clip from the Jeffrey Ford interview that I did a month or so ago. And Jeff talks about a lot of things. It was a deep background episode. He talks about a lot of things on it, but this clip is he it's a little snapshot of his advice, his thoughts on writing. If you're a writer or a beginning writer, this would be really good for you to listen to. So check that out. The short is on my Facebook page, and it's also on the Lovecraft Ezine, well, the YouTube channel that you're watching right now. Just go to the main page and scroll down to the show clips, and you'll find it. Oh, yeah, thanks, Frank. Yeah, I love him. I love his fiction, and I love him as a person. He's a great guy. So, got a question for you guys, and I've thought about this off and on for a long time now. When I started the Lovecraft Ezine, it was a magazine first, it was a community, and then it became a podcast. And it all started in February of 2011. And back then, there hadn't been this whole. I mean, it was out there. Everyone knew, but the whole racism thing with Lovecraft. I think a few years later, maybe 3 or 4 years later, really, there was a huge discussion online about it for quite a while. And of course, a lot of people who are just insane, rabid Lovecraft fans got upset about it. I was Lovecraft a racist? Sure. Was, you know, uh, was it something I really thought about or most people really thought about before then? Not too much. I mean, Thomas Jefferson was a rapist, right? He was a slave owner. And this guy who helped write the Constitution, all men are created equal, uh, but not black men, right? It's just insane how narrow-minded the founding fathers were. But when you mention the name Thomas Jefferson, that's not really the first thing that comes up most of the time. Yeah, I roll my eyes at a lot of it too. And the main reason why I roll my eyes, Kim, is that this is, to me, it's a non-starter because Lovecraft, whatever he did right, whatever he did wrong, um, whatever he wrote in letters, he's dead. He can't be he can't change his behavior. He can't change his opinions. He's dead. Yeah, I like his work, but I wouldn't have a beer with him. Yep, that's my quote. Um, I'm much more interested in what can we do to reduce, if we're on the topic of racism, what can we do to reduce it right now? It's 2024 and it still exists, and that's a damn shame. You know, we shouldn't have to have African American parents warning their boys. Now, if you get pulled over, if you're speeding, make sure you keep your hands on the wheel. Don't give them an excuse to shoot you. Now, keep your hands on the wheel if you're pulled over is just generally good advice, but it becomes far more pertinent and for black people, unfortunately, for African American folks. And the fact that this is 2024 and that is still true is just insanely wrong. And I'm much more interested in doing my small part to reduce the racism that's here today. Um, are we headed in the right direction? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I feel like it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I don't, it's crazy. But as far as some guy who died in 1937's opinions, uh, it's I don't care what he thought, to be honest. And 20 years after he died, we still had sundown towns in this country. 20 years after he died, African Americans were turned away at hotels. So I don't know. The guy lived 100 years ago. I could not care less what he thinks. When I named it the Lovecraft Easing, here's my point though. When I named it the Lovecraft Easing, the word Lovecraft for me is just sort of a shortcut for cosmic horror and, of course, Lovecraftian horror, weird fiction, and then you branch into weird fiction. And of course, I'm interested in many different types of horror. The I could have named it something else, but I didn't. And very few people have ever called me to task over it because they know how I feel about these topics. That hopefully anyone who ever accused me of racism, everyone else would laugh at them because they know I wouldn't do that. But I don't know. Am I, as far as the podcast goes, am I potentially? Well, here's my question: am I potentially turning off potential listeners? Am I turning off potential listeners? They see the Lovecraft Easing podcast, and they don't get past that. They don't get past. They don't see the fun time we have on the show. The spirit of camaraderie, and everyone's welcome on the show. But they stop at the Lovecraft name. So yeah, I am racist when it comes to possums. Thank you, Dave. Um, yeah, that's a good point too, Chaz. And my point about Jefferson, um, he look, I'll boil it down to this. Use these two men as examples. Lovecraft should have known better. I mean, were there a lot more racists in his time? Yeah, there sure as hell were. And as I said, 20 years later, it was still incredibly horrible. Sundown towns and motels and hotels and all, and it's slowly gotten better. But my point is, he was wrong, but all he did was write about it in his letters to friends. Thomas Jefferson actually hurt people, and I use that word "hurt" is a vast understatement. He hurt African Americans. He raped uh, slaves of his, and that's, to me, so much more horrible. And but his name doesn't have the taint that Lovecraft's does. And I'm not saying Lovecraft's name should be bright and shiny. I'm just saying a lot of people who are a lot worse, uh, we don't seem to have that problem with their name. But I don't know. I guess my question for you guys is: do you think the name the Lovecraft Easing is turning away potential podcast listeners? I don't know the answer to that question, and I'm the last one to name change based on, you know, which way I think the wind's blowing. Uh, speaking of 2011, in 2011, Netflix was just starting to get real big with the streaming, as opposed to mailing DVDs, and mailing DVDs to customers. So the CEO of Netflix wanted to change the name. Netflix would be the name for the DVDs, and I forget what it was. Some other name would be the name for the streaming part of the company, which I thought was pretty damn stupid. You've got name recognition. You don't want to. Uh, if you've got good name if you got good name recognition, you better have a damn good reason for changing your name. HBO changing its name to Max, I've never understood either. And there was a big outcry about the Netflix name change, and so they changed their minds. Um, Kim says, "How about a poll?" Um, yeah, it is anonymous, but I also don't want to look at oh, if I get 60% people saying I need to change the name, then maybe I should. Um, I I don't know what I don't know, Kim. I'll have to think about that. And it's not about whether it offends a person or two out there. It's going to, because in this day and age, people are just looking for ways to be offended. And if they can't find a way, they'll make up something. but rather I'm more interested in the question, is it time to change the name in recognition of that? The main question is am I keeping away um, potential new podcast listeners? I do not know the answer to that question. I don't know if it is knowable because if the answer is yes, then and I change the name, then suddenly the name recognition I got going on it disappears too. So maybe it's a wash. And let's say I change it to the Mike Davis podcast. Does in the horror community does my name have the same impact as the Lovecraft Easing podcast? I don't know. Throwing a bunch of questions out there that I don't know the answers to. Um, so anyway, talked about that longer than I wanted to. Block award winning podcaster Mike Davis. It might get a little long, yeah, but thank you. Um, New schedule, yes. Just a couple of things to point out. Obviously, Sundays is the regular podcast, has been for years. Mondays from now on, the audio edition of the Sunday podcast will be dropped sometime during the day. No certain time, but just sometime during the day. Um, I want people, let's see, people know every Sunday, hey, this is going to happen on YouTube. And now people know every Thursday this is going to happen, etc. And you get kind of used to that, right? I want people to get used to that in the same way for the folks who only listen to the audio edition. So I'm gonna uh, I'll make this announcement on that edition too. But from now on, if you listen on audio, it's going to be dropped on Monday. Uh, yeah, it's behind my head. Oh yeah, it is over my shoulder. That's it. Yeah, the 2022 Block Award. Uh, Thanks for the feedback, Hollower. More than likely, I will keep the name the way it is, but I just would be remiss if I wasn't asking myself these questions. And I've been a student of marketing for, wow, almost 30 years now. Yeah, 30 years now. And so all of this potentially offensive stuff aside, it's kind of a marketing question in my mind, which I I love the ins and outs of figuring out that stuff. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. Let's see. So anyway, I want the audio only people to get used to. Okay, every day every Monday, excuse me, every Monday we get our edition of the show. Tuesdays, of course, is the horror readings. Wednesdays, okay, now I gotta look at I've got all these whiteboards over here. I don't think you guys can see them, but I've started writing all this out. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, Tuesday is live horror. Oh, Wednesdays. This was the big thing. Wednesdays is going to be the same for the Patreons to get used to having an episode every day on the same day. Now there'll be other content throughout the week. For example, tomorrow I'm posting the first two chapters of a book that another Patreon wrote, Rebecca Allred, as a matter of fact, great writer. And so that'll be free for Patreons. But anyway, from now on, expect a Patreon episode on Wednesdays. So I just want you guys who are patrons to get used to that regularity. And if you're not a patron, you get all the Patreon podcasts for only $5 a month. So think about it. It might not sound like much, but a lot of people giving that much really adds up and really helps me. Okay, so Thursday, right, is today. Friday, I'm still filling this out, but those are the two big things. the Monday audio edition and the Wednesday Patreon podcast. So I don't know. Marketing's hard, and some of it's luck, some of it's word of mouth, some of it these days is, SEO. I don't know. I'm still learning. I'll always be learning. Um, I'll always be learning because things always change. All right, I think that's all I got. What are you guys up to? What are you guys reading? The hell time is it? Let's see here. 10:50. Let's see. What else am I reading? Oh, the Glassy Burning Floor of Hell by Brian Evanson was $1.99 the other day, and I nabbed that because I'm trying to get all his books. I don't know if it still is, but check it out. Oh, Jessica Laird's girlfriend texted me today with a screenshot of Target of a Target on her phone, a Target search, and she said Laird's now at Target, and so I wrote back, expect less. No, let's see here. Pay more, expect less. The Target slogan, I guess. So and so yeah, Laird's at Target now. What else? I finished Cannon Bridge by Jonathan Barnes. This is interesting. It's an interesting book. And I will say that I enjoyed The Somnambulist, one of his previous books, better more. But Cannon Bridge was good too. And it had a bit of cosmic horror in it, actually, in a way. Um, Quite a mystery to it. And so, if that seems like your kind of thing, check it out. But I unreservedly recommend The Somnambulist. And is that a horror novel? No. It's sort of an urban fantasy novel, which I'm not usually into, but I really liked a lot. So I believe that's all I have. And Alan Hughes has to get up early in the morning and teach all those kids. I better let him get to bed. Every Hollower says every October I read Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. Haven't read that in so long. And October Country by Ray Bradbury. Love Ray Bradbury, which if you've been listening a year, you know. Um, the movie Something Wicked This Way Comes. I usually fit that in sometime in October myself. Um, I'm glad you said that, Hollower, because I wanted to write a blog post about October. I'm writing this down, sorry. October reads and movies. Hopefully, I can read my writing later. Um, of course, a lot of people, I think Kim is one of them, reads um, crap. Night in the Lonesome October. Um, one chapter a day. A lot of people do that in October. Uh, I talked to Roger Zelazny's son. I've had him on the show a couple times in the distant past. His name's Trent. He's a really nice guy. He writes mysteries. But I asked him about Night in the Lonesome October once, and he said, my dad had so much fun writing that book. He was in such a good mood when he was writing that book, and he let me read some of it, and it was just for him. It was a really fun write, I guess you'd say, and that really comes through. You can see how much fun Zelazny is having with it. Yes, Halloween Tree, Something Wicked. There's a Something Wicked audio drama too, Kim. I think it's on YouTube. Um, Autumn Cthulhu. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. You've never read the Zelazny one? It's really good. I mean, any book that can make Jack the Ripper the hero of the story, you should probably check that book out. I have not read For Octobers. I guess I should do that. Um, the layman one, Night in the Lonesome October. Now that's interesting because most of the time when you mention the layman one to people, they're like, just they're really offended that book is so different from the Zelazny one and everything. They're two separate things. I actually did enjoy A Night in the Lonesome October by Richard Lehman. I mean, you have his usual. Um, he's a little oversexed in his novels, and this is no exception. But I really like the idea of what happens is this 20-year-old college kid, he gets dumped by his girlfriend, and that's when the book starts. And it's worth reading of this because it's this town that really shows its weird face at night. And I love that kind of thing. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so he's depressed, and he already got drunk and had the worst hangover of his life a few days before. So he doesn't want to do that again. So he just says, I got to get out of my room and I'm going to go for a walk. So he goes for a walk and in this college town at night. It's like midnight, something like that. It's late. And the book is basically about he keeps doing this. He keeps going out at night and walking. It's about these crazy characters that he comes across, and they're not always explained. Like the old lady on the bike, Hollower, she's not explained, but it's all the better for that. And what about the guy who lit his match on the dark porch that the kid was hiding in? That was amazing. The title is A Night in the Lonesome October, same title as Roger Zelazny's book, but this is by Richard Lehman. We were talking about the Lehman book, October Reads, and Hollower mentioned the the Lehman one, Richard Lehman one. And so, he meets these weird characters, and one night he starts following this girl because he's just curious why she's out. It's not in a creepy way, and he gets to know her after a couple of nights. And actually, you know what? Let me read the synopsis because I think it does a really good job, does a better job than me of Night in the Lonesome October by Richard Lehman. Oh, it's on Kindle Unlimited, guys. There you go. All right, here we go. Everything changed for Ed that day in the fall semester when he got a letter from Holly, the girl he loved. Dear Ed, it began, I will always cherish the times we had. Holly was in love with someone else. It was as if his whole world had changed in a second. That night, heartbroken and half mad with despair, Ed couldn't sleep, so he decided to go for a walk. But it's a dark, scary night in the lonesome October, and Ed is not alone. There are others out there in the night, roaming the streets, lurking in the darkness, waiting to show Ed just how different his world could be. Some of them are enticing, like the beautiful girl who wants to teach Ed about the wonders of the night. Some are disturbing and threatening. Some are deadly and in search of prey. Wait a minute, there's an audible recording of the Richard Lehman one? I don't, you must be talking about another book. There's probably an audio of the Zelazny one. I think you got the Selazny one, man. Yeah, you got the Selazny one, which is good. You should keep it. If you've never read the Zelazny one, you're in for a treat. Um, you really are. And yeah, you're gonna read about Snuff the dog, and then all the characters he runs into from classic horror movies, and he runs into Sherlock Holmes. Only the Sherlock Holmes name is never mentioned, and it's really good. It's just it's pure joy reading it and or listening to it. So looks like Matt Godfrey is the narrator. But anyway, that's the difference between those two books. Um, and and yeah, October Dreams, Matt gave me that, so I'm lucky to have it. It is my favorite layman book too, Hollower. Um, and there are many layman books I don't care for. Most of them, as a matter of fact, and I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything. It's just it's not my thing. You know, if it's other people's thing, that's great. But Night in the Lonesome October is, and The Traveling Vampire Show are the two books of his that I've really enjoyed. In fact, I'm due for a reread of The Traveling Vampire Show. Do I have that title right? I think I do. Traveling Vampire Show. Might help if I could type. Okay, Richard Lehman. Yeah, here it is. I'm just curious. I wanted to look it up because I wanted to see if. Oh, it is on Audible. Okay, there's my. When I get my credits on the second, I'm gonna spend a credit on that because I haven't read that in years. I just remember really liking it. But I also remember that Traveling Vampire Show and Night in the Lonesome October are the only two layman books that I really like, and they're the only two layman books that I recommend. So, but again, that's just me. If you love all of Layman's work, more power to you. So, anyway, guys, happy Halloween. We're going to do this a week from tonight on Halloween night, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a Halloween episode this Sunday, 6 p.m. If you're new, it's at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't watch it live, you can watch it later, but I hope you can watch it live. And so I will see you all on Sunday. Thanks for hanging out with me on Thursday night. Enjoy your Friday.